Good morning. My name is Graham Harrington, for those of you who don't know me. I was baptized in this church as a baby and have been a member my whole life. Today I want to talk about something that I struggle with, and that's trust. As Christians, we look at stories in the Bible where Jesus performs these miracles, and yet people still doubt him. And we marvel at the fact that these people have the audacity to doubt what's right in front of them. At the end of Matthew's gospel, it says that even with the risen Jesus standing right in front of them, some doubted. How, we wonder, can they doubt when they see him doing these miracles right in front of them? When in reality, we do the same thing every day. We doubt him. We have his words, he heals the people we love, he restores relationships, he sends us miracles, and yet the minute something happens that doesn't quite line up with the way we think things are supposed to go, we panic. We get scared because we don't have all the answers. In today's society, we expect instant gratification. We want to be in control. We want to know everything that's going to happen. But God has this bird's eye view of our life, and he knows where we're going. We doubt because we don't see what he sees. We don't have God standing over our shoulder telling us why things happen, as much as we wish we did. So we hesitate to trust him, to put our lives in his hands and let him take control. I certainly have had my fair share of hesitation this past year. One of those times was during a little musical that our church did called Godspell. When Ken talked to me about playing Jesus, I was a little shocked and a bit scared. I didn't know how people would respond to a female Jesus. I said yes with some hesitation, but I trusted that God would help me out. As we got into rehearsals, I struggled at first to feel confident in my choices as an actor. I struggled to feel like the leader that Jesus was. But the more we rehearsed, the more I felt the love that this group had for each other. This cast was the most supportive, uplifting group of people that I've ever been a part of, and without God putting them in my path, I wouldn't have had the courage to dive into that role. Another time I've been hesitant in trusting God this year was finding what I want to do once I graduate. Senior year is a very strange period. You go to school for 11 years because it's what you're supposed to do. It's what your parents make you do. And then all of a sudden people are telling you it's time that you decide where you want to go to school and what you want to do and where you want to live for the next 4 years, which will in turn lead to what you want to do the rest of your life. That's pretty terrifying. How am I supposed to make that decision? It's so easy to be overwhelmed by this and to doubt God's plan for me. I wanted God to just send me a sign, to just let me know which school I needed to be at. I visited about 6 schools and every one of them was good. They had the program that I wanted, but it just didn't feel right. The last school I visited had a beautiful campus and a great musical theater program, so I thought this could be a good choice. And as Mom and I were driving back down the mountain to go home, I felt like I was leaving a part of me there, and I knew that that was God telling me that this was where I needed to be. And so next year, I'll be joining a few other First Pres members up in Cullowhee at Western Carolina University. Go Cats! And as I start on this new path, I know that I'm going to have moments where I doubt God's plan for me, where I question his motives. But one of my favorite quotes is from a Lutheran preacher named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. The quote is, "God does not give us everything we want, but he does fulfill his promises, leading us along the best and straightest paths to himself." Dietrich was an anti-Hitler dissident who was imprisoned and eventually hanged. He had reason to doubt and not trust that God was leading him along the best and straightest path. And yet through it all, he had faith in God's plan for him. I have faith in God's plan for me because I know that I'm loved. I know that this church family will always be there for me. I know that my youth group will always be there for me, even as we go our separate ways. And I am eternally grateful to God for you all who have helped me to understand what it really means to have faith. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Mast, and my first time visiting this church was on Celebration Sunday this summer before I started middle school. I was greeted with warm smiles and friendly chatter, and from then on, my Sundays for the next 7 years involved Sunday school, youth group, youth handbells, and choir. Participating in these activities afforded me many opportunities to get involved in both the local and international community, as well as gain a church family. I was able to experience these activities with your help and support. As a high schooler, I have been blessed to go to Montreat every summer. I love going and being able to connect with hundreds of Christian youth, giving me the chance to learn more about Christ with my peers. One distinct memory that I have comes from the candlelight service at the end of the week, where all the youth are gathered around Lake Susan. I can remember the solidarity that I felt with everyone around me as we sang hymns under the moonlight. My first international mission trip was during my freshman year of high school. We spent a week and a half in the village of La Havia in the Dominican Republic. This experience gave me a global perspective beyond the trivial matters of my daily life. We were tasked with constructing the second floor of the local church. To accomplish this, we had a bucket line that carried dirt, which acted as the foundation from outside of the building all the way up to the second floor. The children of the village were more than happy to help out, spending most of their time doing so. I was humbled to see them so excited to do manual labor. They taught us songs and played games with us, effectively breaking the language barrier. As we worked together through the heat, I saw God's helping hand thousands of miles away from High Point, North Carolina. And after months of hard work and fundraising, the youth was able to go to Scotland, where the origin of Presbyterianism is, this past summer. We toured the ruins of churches destroyed during the Reformation, and moreover, we were able to visit the church where John Knox preached at, and his grave nearby. Not wanting to move him from his final resting spot, John Knox's final resting place is now in the parking lot of a law office. Besides that, our trip to Scotland gave me a deeper connection to those before us. I saw firsthand that people's faith in God is able to withstand the most difficult times, and as well as continuing on for hundreds of years. I have gained some understanding of what it means to find your faith and your church, giving you the ability to withstand some pretty difficult times. The scariest moment of my life happened in the church parking lot after I returned from a ski trip my freshman year. My father was in the hospital, and the doctors were testing him for cancer. From then on, we lived in the hospital as my father dealt with chemotherapy treatment. While he had a brief remission period during the summer, he relapsed and passed away that October. I was overcome with grief. The most important man in my life was suddenly gone. And I was never upset with God, and instead I sought comfort in him and the church. At his funeral, I did not expect to see so many of the familiar faces of church members mourning with me. And in the following months, I continued to feel this silent support as I adjusted to life without him. However, I know that even though I have lost an earthly father, I still have a heavenly one. And I have been incredibly grateful to have been able to grow up in this church. And despite the beautiful building that houses our congregation, it is the individual members that create this family in Christ and hold his spirit. As I leave for college next year at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, I hope to embody this spirit and impact the others around me, just as you all have done for me.
My name is Anna Cheek. I've been blessed to be a member of this church my whole life. I was confirmed in 8th grade, baptized as a baby, and born into this church. Growing up as a member of this church, I was blessed with adults who taught me and loved me at every stage. Vacation Bible School, WeKirk, children's sermons up front with our ministers, nursery with Miss Brown, preschool with Miss Jenny and Miss Bob, choir with Miss Goley and Judith, and Kids of the Covenant, Montreat Camp, confirmation class, and youth group. Every step of the way, I grew closer to God as our church family nurtured me on my faith journey. A big part of my faith journey has been learning how to serve God and how rewarding it can be. Mark 16:15 says, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." This summer, after my freshman year of high school, I went out into the world on my first trip abroad to the Dominican Republic with our youth group. This experience was life-changing for me in many ways. It probably shaped what I will do in life because it helped me to see my strengths in working with children and the complete joy they bring to me. The children in the Dominican made me feel like they saw God's light in me, and I know I saw God's light in them. While in the Dominican, we did hard labor, helping the community put in a floor in their church, and coordinating a medical clinic and a vacation Bible school. But the best work we did was connecting with the people. I saw God in each one of the people in the community. They had so little, worked so hard, and endured substandard living conditions, but they were always so happy. They sang while they worked alongside us in the heat, and I know some of them were hungry. They taught me that happiness is not about the things you own, but rather the people God has blessed you with. Another thing I learned from this trip was the many ways God's love can be communicated. Before the trip, I was worried that I was going to struggle with communicating because I knew very little Spanish. But my mom would always say that it wouldn't matter because smiling is a universal language. I didn't really believe her though because it just sounded like another quote she had found on Instagram. But my mom was right. Smiling was indeed one way we communicated. But the Dominican people also communicated through cooking for us, worshiping with us, singing to us, letting us hold their babies, and welcoming us into their homes. God's love was definitely all around us in the midst of these difficult living conditions, and enabling us to communicate without words. I'm very thankful to have been able to go on this trip with our church. It changed the direction of my life by opening my eyes to God's light and others as well as myself. Now, of course, you don't have to go to the Dominican Republic to serve God and God's people. There is a need for help right here in High Point. One of the highlights of my 18 years at this church was getting to serve at Open Door Ministries. I'm inspired by families like the Douglases and the Gurus who led up our ministry there. Every time I served at Open Door, it was rewarding to see the smiles on each person's face and know they were getting a good meal from our church. Through this ministry, our church family has taught me that we are not to keep God's love to ourselves, but we are to go out into the world and share it with others, whether it is in another country or right here at home. I could not imagine making it through my high school years without our youth group. Coming to youth group was always the highlight of my week, because although all of us are so different, we all accept each other as we are. This youth group gave me adults to look up to and lifelong friends. Getting to experience this year with my little sister has been so special, and it gives me a peace of mind to know that Madeline will have our youth group to see her through high school after I am gone. Drew and Marianne, thank you for being like my second parents on trips when I would get annoyed with my actual parents. Deborah, thank you for being an amazing role model and friend. I'm so thankful that God led me to be a role model to your sweet children. I'm definitely going to miss my daily car rides with Maddie Brown. Dr. Ken, thank you for always being someone I can talk to. But don't forget, you'll have to come back someday to lead my service when I get married someday. Now for the part my mom doesn't know I added in. Many of you know Brian and Catherine as your youth advisors, but I know them as Mom and Dad. Mom, thank you for showing me how to be a strong, independent, godly woman. And Dad, thank you for always putting a smile on my face and always being there for me. Lastly, I encourage all the children of the church to participate in as much as you can. Time will go by fast. Listen to the adults who are guiding you and be a role model to the younger kids. There is nothing more rewarding than serving God and His people. I would like to thank our entire church family for guiding me through these past 18 years.